So for whatever reason, you stumbled upon this video trying to figure out what the heck this game called Dungeons & Dragons, or D&D for short, actually is. We're gonna go over what is D&D, how do you play it, who exactly is playing it, and why you should play it. With that being said, we're gonna get straight into the video. So, Dungeons & Dragons is a role-playing game that's taking the world by storm. It's an RPG about storytelling, typically set in the world of fantasy. So D&D at its core, it's a little bit tricky to explain, but ultimately it's driven by your imagination. It's about imagining yourself and your friends all in a crumbling castle in that of a dark forest, and then imagining how your character and everybody else's will react to those obstacles. So the unique thing about D&D is that its possibilities are absolutely limitless. A lot of video games like to tout how their games will never feel the same, or there's always going to be endless replayability, when in fact it's just a difference between one or two options and maybe a character ability choice or anything like that. For D&D, it's that, but so much more. You want to play as someone like Legolas from Lord of the Rings? Or how about a nonsense warrior from the Badlands that you just created? Heck, let's say you want to just rip a character from a video game that already exists. Like, let's say we're going to take Link out of Legend of Zelda and that's going to be your character. The point is, you can do that. Okay, so I went over how exactly characters can be different, but you're probably wondering, hey Sensei, okay, that's just characters, but what about the actual game? Well, the thing about it is determining the consequences of those adventurous actions are actually all determined, for the most part, randomly by that of, well, dice. You've all seen them. You've all seen the D20, D6s, the Monopoly dice as everybody likes to call them. Those are all used to determine a lot of the consequences of those events. Let's say you want to strike a goblin and just punch him directly in the face. Let's roll some dice and figure out what happens. Or let's say you want to literally summon the wrath of Zeus and smite down somebody because they didn't sell you an apple. Well, let's roll some dice and figure out what happens. The point is, anything is possible, but the dice make things more probable than others. So how is it exactly played? So for D&D, each player actually creates a character who is an adventurer of the sorts, who teams up with other adventurers to all go on this grand sort of journey. There's also one other player known as the Dungeon Master, or the DM for short. The DM is the game's lead storyteller in this collaborative storytelling game, or more akin to that of the referee. The DM runs adventures for the characters whose goal is to navigate and explore all these sort of obstacles and hazards across the entire journey. Funny enough, the process to play D&D is really just a simple 3-step process. No, really, it's actually that simple, I'm serious. Like, it's even on the D&D Beyond website. For example, number 1, the DM describes the environment. The DM, or Dungeon Master for short, tells the players where the characters they created are and what's around them, presenting the basic scope of options that present themselves, like how many doors lead out of a room, what's on a table, who's in the tavern, and so on. Number 2, the players describe their desired actions. Next, sometimes one player speaks up for the whole party, saying, we'll take the east door, for example. Other times, different players tend to do different things. The players don't need to take turns, but the DM listens to everyone and decides how to resolve those actions. Then finally, we enter step number 3. The DM narrates the results. Finally, the Dungeon Master begins describing what exactly happens after the players decided to give their input and decide to do their own very actions. That being said, afterwards, we all begin to flow all the way back to that of step 1. The DM describes the environment. But really, that's it. That's how D&D is played. Almost all the aspects of D&D follow this 3-step process, and with a little bit of other things and dice rolls like that sprinkled in between. To be honest, you've probably heard of Dungeons & Dragons multiple ways. Probably one of a couple of ways, maybe being that of either through your friends or that of maybe a popular Twitch stream such as Critical Role or that of Arcadum or anything like that. If not that, you may have even seen Vin Diesel play it before. So, and yeah, you actually heard me correctly. Lots and lots of famous celebrities actually play D&D. You know, well, besides like Vin Diesel, there's people like Terry Crews, Joe Manganiello, Stephen Colbert, Matt Mercer, as well as, you know, the owner of Critical Role and voice actor in almost every video game you've probably ever heard. You know, that guy. But Twitch streamers even such as Ludwig or Charlie and Moist Critical, Moon, Lil Pichu, and Valkyrie, and a lot more. and even the Big Show from WWE. Heck, at this point, even grandma and your 3-year-old baby cousin who can barely even pronounce your name is playing D&D at the moment. Oh, and I should probably address this. I'm not showing you or telling you about all these people playing D&D and saying that, oh, you should too because of that reason. The reason why I'm saying this and bringing this up is because I'm trying to show you how accessible the game is. Anybody can play it if they really want to. Heck, if you want to play out and just play some games with your friends, play D&D. If you want to pretend to be something completely different and to get away from this sort of crazy real-life world and dive into the realm of fantasy, play D&D. If you want to build an entire world in a crazy high fantasy setting that's been sort of brewing in your head for years and years and years, and you want to put it to paper or something like that, play D&D. There's going to be something for you. Trust me. Alright, so that's going to wrap up the video today. However, if you're interested in that, join the Discord. We stream our games live on twitch.tv/SenseiSuplex, giving actionable tips on how to bring your D&D games to that of the next level. All those links down below in the description. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.